Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, man. GSMC Football Podcast. We're back after a little bit of a break here for the whole GSMC podcast family. Brice, how was your Turkey Day, man? How was I don't want to say vacation, but how was your holiday? How are you processing football right now? Are you still awake? Has the food coma wore off? Are you still eating Thanksgiving food? Questions that need answers.
Well, first, like to say it went well. You know, it was good spending time with the family. You know, eating some good food. Always a good time doing that. Don't have really any complaints. I think we have a little bit of food left, like some turkey, maybe some ham. I feel like that's always what usually is like the last things. So obviously the sides are all gone. So if anything, you know, we might combine some stuff with that, but. Overall, man, it was really good. I had a good time, you know, doing what I did this past week. Good recharge and everything of that sort. How was yours? Everything was good on your end?
Yeah, man. I was down in Savannah with Sharena, so it was all good, man. So I did Thanksgiving with her family, and that was probably the first time I've ever done that. So, you know, all good vibes, good things. Football, not everything was good vibes or good things, depending on the team you follow. But let's start off in the NFC, as I think NFC probably has more moving and shaking going on as far as overall records are concerned. Somehow the Bears are still in a race, even though they just took a big L against the Packers. That's just the way the NFC is. I don't want to actually talk about this Packers game and what happened on the field, because we all saw enough of what happened. Aaron Rodgers went and did his thing. Their defense had a couple turnovers. Mitch Trubisky did what Mitch Trubisky does. Although the Mitchell Trubisky truthers were out in full force saying that this was not Mitch's fault. This is not on Mitch. This is on the defense and such and such. And, you know, I don't really want to hear it, because it's not like, you know, if you're a good quarterback, you can kind of overcome a lot of stuff. Mitch is not a good quarterback. And we just have to keep this as a buck. Mitch is not good. Nick Foles is fool's gold. And we just need to be okay with this. There's not a quarterback that is good in Chicago. That's number one. Number two, considering that breaking news, it's not really breaking news, but Matt Patricia is no longer the head coach of the Detroit Lions, we have to start moving old Matt Nagy in the coach firing rankings. It has to be done, because this team is falling apart. You can't tell me a defense that's headed along with one of the best edge rushers in football, it couldn't tackle. They don't know what to do. Green Bay, they made Green Bay look physically dominant. And I don't think physically dominant is a thing that you usually describe the Green Bay Packers. And they haven't really been described that way this season, unless they, I will say against the 49ers, Aaron Jones was getting whatever he wanted. But even then, I wouldn't sit here and describe their offensive line, defensive line as physically imposing compared to everywhere else. But Brice, how do you feel about the Chicago Bears going forward and what their quarterback situation is, their head coach, if they will have him back? How do you feel?
Well, I feel like it's that situation I think you have every year with a team. where we know the Bears defense is your strength. The Bears defense is the good defense. But after a while, especially how they started off 5-1, you got to think where the team was. The defense was like, all right, we're playing good defense. We're 5-1. Our offense is doing just enough. And if we can just keep this up, we can win. And then really over these last 5 weeks, now that they're 5-5 or 5-6 now, I think last night really showed it. After a while, you just kind of say, you know what? We're not going to be able to score enough. Should we even play as hard as we do? Like, really, it's a legitimate question because it's just, you know, I like I said, I made this comment, I think, last time we were on the podcast together. The Bears made a mistake by already, before any quarterbacks were off the board, going out and saying, Nick Foles, we're trading for Nick Foles. He's the guy. He's competing with Mitchell Trubisky when there were better options they could have potentially got. They could have went and got a Teddy Bridgewater. They could have gotten potentially a Cam. They could have even tried to get Tom Brady. And they did. They just said Nick Foles. And I sat there and I was just like, why would you go for Nick? You must really think Nick is going to be Super Bowl run with the Philadelphia Eagles Nick and not every other Nick Foles, like Ram Nick Foles. Because to me, I just felt like that was their first mistake. I feel like it was a case of Matt Nagy sometimes with these great offensive minds. They think that they have the offense to elevate guys, not realizing you still need a guy who was good to be successful. You know, you see it all the time. You see it with Jared Goff and Sean McVay. We don't know what Jared Goff would be if he wasn't in Sean McVay's system because we see him struggle within a system that's probably, I think a lot of people say, is probably one of the most creative offensive systems in the NFL. Clearly, he can have very good days in that system. Clearly, if he's on point, the offense can look like one of the best offenses in the league. But we've also seen the bad. But we know he is one of the reasons why Jared Goff's in a good position is because of the offense that they do run. Where Matt Nagy, I feel like I can get Nick Foles to a point where we can still be just as good offensively with him as the guy. But one thing that I think has hurt Nick Foles, and it's going to hurt a lot of guys in the league because the league has changed, is that nowadays you need a guy who can be mobile. And Nick Foles is a sitting duck in the pocket. And so unless the Bears have one of the best offensive lines in the league, which they don't, you're basically now not able to be mobile because Mitchell Trubisky is a more mobile guy. At least he can get out of pressure. Nick Foles is basically a sitting duck. And then it feels like if you watch Nick Foles, he misses a lot of throws. It just doesn't look like he just doesn't look like a good quarterback. And I think combining that with the struggles offensively, the defense probably last night, I think in Green Bay's game basically just said, man, screw it. Like, you know, like what? Like, I mean, if we can't keep Green Bay to 20 points, we don't have a chance because we know our offense is too challenged to get us back. And especially now, because I mean, technically Chicago's still in the playoff race. They could still technically, if they were able to win 2-3, they could be in the wild card, especially with Arizona losing a couple of games. But I think that makes it worse knowing that you're still so close, but it just feels like the way your team is playing, is there even a point of trying? Because it just doesn't feel like nothing's going to change. Our quarterback situation is not going to change. And that's why I think it's going to cost Matt Nagy his job at the end of the year. And they're gonna barely have to just restart on the offensive end, especially at the quarterback position if you're Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. So can we go ahead and pencil in who should we say? I think Trevor Lawrence and of course the Ohio State quarterback by Justin Fields. They're gone 1 and 2. That's for sure. I think depending on how the rest of everything plays out in the NFL standings and stuff, let's say the Bears are in like the 10th pick. You think that's Kyle Trask time?
There's some guys. I mean, obviously we know about North Dakota State's guy Larry Nance. Not Larry Nance, but I know his last name.
Trey Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance. My bad, Trey Lance. Potentially Kyle Trask. Mac Jones is high going up boards. Those are 3 guys to maybe keep an eye on potentially. Jamie Newman supposedly is a top 5 guy this year too. So I don't think they'll go that high, but just a name to throw out there. They have some options. This is probably maybe what some people consider a better quarterback class than last year's class in terms of depth. Because last year, after the first 3 guys, I don't think we had another quarterback drafted to the 3rd round, and then after that, to the 6th. So it wasn't like a deep draft, but this year should be a little better. So maybe, because I don't think there's any major quarterbacks that are going to be free agents unless, I don't know, they want to give Jameis Winston a chance. I mean, that's a potential move potentially they can make, but I guess that's going to be probably the decision of that new regime in Chicago when they get to it.
Can I bring up a hot take?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that if the Washington football team wins the NFC East, they will end up getting Jameis Winston in the offseason. If they don't, they'll probably try and draft somebody. That's my hot take.
Well, I mean, I can ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
What would you do with Alex Smith?
Have him as a backup. Or the football political correct term would be they would both have a chance to get the starting job. They can battle it out. There'll be a quarterback battle for the starting job, and whoever wins, wins.
I'm sure you can go ahead and trade Dwayne Haskins.
I think they would release Dwayne Haskins. I think they would just eat the dead money. It's not like he was drafted as a top 10 pick.
Yeah, he wasn't. So, I mean, they'd have to eat some money, but it wouldn't be like a huge cap hit or anything of that sort. So
Yeah.
that probably is a move they could make. Because you have to think about it. Washington also wins. I mean, Alex Smith has played, well in his return. So I'm sure, Ron is going to be like, I mean, he did win us the division last year. So I can't be so quick to say, yeah, we need to get him out the door. But I definitely can understand he's not going to probably be your future. Going ahead and drafting your future would probably be the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think Chicago at this point is just to bring it back to the main discussion. I think Chicago's in a weird place where they're borderline close to rebuilding. Like they have a lot of youth on their team at the same time. People on their defense like Hicks and just a lot of Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson's still pretty young, but guys are kind of hitting their pride. They're in their prime, right? And you don't want to waste it. And you're going to have to start paying a certain dude soon. And it would be better for you to go find and get a quarterback in the draft if you think that if you can maximize the amount of talent you already have across the line of scrimmage on offense with Allen Robinson, who I think is going to be looking for a deal sooner rather than later. And all their young other wide receiver cores like Anthony Miller and Darnell Mooney looks pretty solid. And Cole Kmet, because I don't know if Jimmy Graham will be back next year either. But all in all, they have a lot of talent on offense if their offensive line stays healthy. Not to mention David Montgomery. I like him, even though for fantasy purposes, he's kind of inconsistent, even though he had a pretty big game, all things considered, last week for fantasy. I will say, though, don't sleep on the Cam Newton train. He might make a stop at Chicago.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I still think that the way Chicago is, cold weather, run the football, grind it out, I feel like Cam would have fit that mold, Because he can run it. They can establish the running game, and then they do play action. I think that's the best way to play it. And I think with Matt Nagy and Cam, that actually might have made a very interesting duo.
We've seen Matt Nagy use quarterbacks as a part of running schemes too. Like early Mitch Trubisky, he was running all over the place. I don't know what's going on. This is why I'm confused about Matt Nagy. I don't think Matt Nagy necessarily is a bad coach. I think his play calling has gotten weird. I think it's gotten unimaginative. And maybe he just doesn't have faith in his quarterbacks to do it. Or maybe COVID has something to do with it. But it wasn't all that interesting last year either. So I'm kind of confused on what he's doing play calling wise, situationally. And I guess the record kind of has to speak for itself. When you're 5-1 and you lose 5 straight, something's happening, right? Something has to give. And a lot of the games that the Chicago Bears won, of course, were kind of fluky. They had no business doing what they did to Atlanta, all things considered. If you look back at it, look what Atlanta's done. Look what Chicago has done over the past couple weeks. Atlanta got caught sleeping, and it was bad. Everybody laughed at them. We understand what the case is. And it just kept happening to them. And Chicago got to get a scapegoat win, when in reality, Atlanta should have won that game, and we should be looking at a Chicago team that is basically 2 games under 500. They should have lost to Detroit. And another sneaky comeback win that made people believe in Mitch Trubisky again. And yeah, I think Chicago's properly where they are. They just weren't that good. And now injuries are kind of getting into the light and hurting them even farther. So let's take a break and we'll continue in the NFC.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC Football Podcast, we're back. And we're continuing on our NFC excursion. We have we're taping this on a Monday night where we have a NFC showdown that will determine a lot of things for, one, the NFC East, and of course the NFC West, as it is Seahawks Eagles. I don't really want to talk about that matchup too much, just because I'd rather wait for the results, and then what happens. And of course, we know the Eagles are in a weird place. I'd say that Doug Peterson is on the chopping block. I know some people may think differently, but I've been saying this for a while now, that Doug Peterson he's kind of pushed away this whole Super Bowl winning thing, especially considering that the offensive coordinator, once he left, things have been kind of weird for the Eagles. I can't remember off the top of my head who's the offensive coordinator for. I'll do some quick. I'll get the interns on that. But I know for a fact that the offensive coordinator who was with the Eagles, who won the Super Bowl, is no longer there. And since then, the Eagles have been struggling for quite some time. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to a more important conversation here, which is the fact that the Falcons got a impressive question mark win against the Las Vegas Raiders, which in reality is more of a bad loss for the Raiders than it is for the Falcons, because let's just face it, I don't believe the Falcons did themselves any favors, because now they're just putting themselves in limbo. Not only, I don't want to talk about their coach. I don't think they put themselves in limbo for their coach. I don't think they're bringing back Raheem Morris in any capacity next season, but I'm sure he'll get a look, he'll get an interview, and it'll be all peachy keen, and then they'll hire, I don't know, Bieniemy or something. But as far as drafts concerns, a lot of people, we're really starting to see the traction on this Matt Ryan is cooked thing. We don't need Matt Ryan in Atlanta anymore thing. How do you feel about this as first an Atlanta fan? Watching this transpire, you're watching your team win games. It probably, like, if it was me, I would be probably infuriated, because at this point, you just look at the beginning of the season of just like literally 3 plays in the beginning of the season would change the whole narrative on how the Falcons are looked like. They'd probably be closer to what's going on with Tampa Bay, which the Falcons have lost 6 games?
7.
7 games. So they would be in the thick of it with Tampa Bay right now. Legit. Like, they would be in playoff contention. You still technically might. We might see a cold implosion of Tampa Bay if you guys keep winning, but I don't know if you want to do that. But how do you feel about Matt Ryan going forward into next season? Do you think it's time to move off? Maybe it's time to let Julio, fly somewhere else. Who knows? I know that's not a popular statement to say, but maybe it's time to go full rebuild mode here and remove yourself from everything that had to do with 2016, because as we've seen, this team is in a weird limbo place.
Well, I think that one thing we have to look at is, in terms of Matt, Matt's done a lot for this franchise. He's basically the greatest quarterback we've ever had. And, he can still play the game. He can still play it at a high level. I think we've seen that in some games this year as well. Even though, Matt has those games sometimes where you're just like, whoa. But Matt, I think, especially getting older in his career, is definitely in need of a team around him who can operate efficiently as well, or else he will struggle, which we have seen over the years as well as too. And so for me, I kind of feel like, Matt's fine. I mean, if I think I've said this before, if they move off Matt Ryan, I understand, because, like I said, the league has changed. You need a more mobile quarterback, really. And Matt's still not considered a very mobile guy. I guess he could be shifty. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, at least a little bit nimble, but he's not really a mobile guy. And so, maybe you want to go with a more dynamic player at that position. And I understand the Falcons going that direction. When it comes to Julio, for me with Julio, I feel like he's the one guy out of the two you would keep, just because what would moving on from Julio really do for the team? Like Matt, that's a big shift. Like, you're basically changing your signal card. Like, if we were able to somehow land like in hypothetical, this is not going to happen, like a Kyler Murray or a Deshaun Watson. Julio would still be a top receiver and, put up big numbers. And it's just like, well, you gave them this amazing receiver like they currently have, and boom. So for him, he'll just only help with the receiving core we have. The only thing that would be considerably, under consideration is Julio's health, because Julio's always banged up with something. It's just, he's really been able to play through a lot of good injuries. Where this year's one of the first times where he's really missed some games because he's had some very, naggy injuries. But if you've been watching the Falcons season, the entire receiving core has been getting banged up, and we're losing receivers left and right. So, obviously we know with no workouts over the offseason, we know it was going to be more difficult to maintain, health, especially with a lot of soft tissue injuries, because of the fact you weren't able to go through the same workout programs that they're able to go through. So Julio would probably be the least likely out of the two to me that I would probably move. Matt, like I said, I understand they do. Like I said, there are some teams you've already heard when they were discussing it that Matt might be interested in Matt. He could reunite with Kyle Shanahan and San Francisco, because, teams get into that win now mode, which I'm sure if San Francisco feels like they're in, and says, what, last time I was with this guy, we went to the Super Bowl. He had an MVP year. I don't feel like he's that far different from that player. So, I think I have weapons here in San Francisco plus a better defense. Well, maybe I should make that move for Matt, And if that happens, if we get some good compensation back, all we can do, like I said, is build off of it. Now, with the draft pick, I see why everybody's a little concerned, because if we did make a move like that, well, we don't have a high enough draft pick in our head to get a top quarterback. So what will we do at the quarterback position to assure whoever's starting for us next year, is someone who, like, we feel belief in? Again, we have to throw Jameis in there, so he'll be a free agent, but I highly doubt we'll go in that direction. You never know, maybe a guy who's maybe looking for an opportunity potentially. You never know. Maybe, you have no idea. If we do trade Julio, maybe he could be a part of some big blockbuster deal to get the top 2, top 1 pick. I don't know.
There's no way anybody in the top 2 are passing out on Lawrence and passing up on Fields. There's no way. There's no way. You're not getting. You can't make this right, Georgia. You can't make this right and go get Justin Fields. You can't do it. You sold the bag, and this is the reap. You have to reap what you sow.
Well, one thing I thought about too is, I mean, potentially if we did make a trade for a team for quarterback, I know if Jets get number one, people think, oh, they'll draft Trevor Lawrence and potentially trade Sam Darnold. Obviously, that's an option to consider as well. If we want to go down that route, because of the fact, if he's young, people still feel like he has the potential to be a franchise guy. So we have, like I said, in terms of quarterback market, it'll be interesting. It would be very difficult to draft a guy unless we're going to draft, again, a Kyle Trask or somebody, and maybe hope, hey, could they develop into someone who could play for us immediately? But overall, I think Matt, is fine. But at the same time, I will understand if they move off of him, because it's just one of those things where if you just feel like the time is right, the time is right. It's not one of those situations where he's playing at a super high level and it's just because of his age. It's like, oh, we got to move off him. Like, how it was with Tom Brady, where it's like he's playing at a high level. He's getting you to close to Super Bowls, but he's getting older. And, Bill Belichick wanted to move off of him. It's not that. It's just, it's just maybe time to say, hey, let's start over. New regime, new head coach, new GM. Let's give another quarterback a shot, build this team up differently, and see what happens.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. On a scale of 1 to 10, how screwed is Tampa Bay?
I'm one of those people who isn't going to go over the top. I'll go about a 6.5.
But do you want to go over the top? Is the real question.
Not really, because the thing we have to look at is this. Yes, they did look bad against the Chiefs, but we have to remember what conference they play in. They play in the NFC. They can beat Green Bay. They probably can beat Seattle. They can probably beat any team in the NFC East. They can probably beat who else am I missing? I mean, outside of the Saints, that's the only team they haven't been able to beat. Outside of that, they could beat every other team in the NFC. And at the end of the day, as long as you have a chance.
Are we sure about this statement now? Because look, they lost to the Rams. The Rams got embarrassed. Like, Jared Goff's horrible. And they lost to the 49ers. Now, of course, this is interdivision rivalry type stuff. We've seen rivalry games are kind of games that you feel like you have to throw out the window when it comes to evaluating teams because they just know each other so well. I don't really know how to explain division stuff, but at the end of the day, I don't know, man. I think it's not as cut and dry. This is the same team that almost lost to the Giants. The Giants. One bad call away, they might be going to overtime. Then who knows what happens, right? They lost bad to the Saints. They beat Carolina. Everyone thinks, okay, they figured it out. They lose to a really good pass rush and Aaron Donald and the Rams. They lose to the Chiefs. These teams are not cupcakes. Like, I'm going to keep repeating this. When we talked about this when he signed, Tom Brady walked up in the NFC South specifically, and thought things were sweet. He thought things were going to be cupcake. And it's also hilarious to me how the 1 year, basically, that he decided to dip out of the AFC East, they got two teams that are contending for playoff spots. Right? It's just so convenient. However, what he didn't realize was that although he hasn't played Atlanta yet, that hasn't happened. He's played a pretty young Carolina defense, and even then, they haven't been completely just drubbings, right? Except for the last one. He thought he could just go up in there in New Orleans and just do something. And, people thought the first game was a statement game. The second game was just even worse. And then he beat, of course, they beat Green Bay, which I'm still suspect of. I think Green Bay is a suspect. I think, who else is it? I think Seattle's a suspect. I'm starting to think that Arizona might be a little bit suspect too.
But wouldn't you say every team in the NFC is kind of sus?
Everybody, all NFC teams so far are showing weaknesses that you don't want to see in Super Bowl caliber teams. Besides the Saints, except for Taysom Hill at the starting quarterback. That's the only thing. But I don't really care because I don't care about the bye week except for injury purposes. Like, it's good to have a week off, but at the same time, whatever, man. Like, it's only one team that gets it. Basically, the division is locked up. Like, I don't see the Saints losing to the Falcons again. I don't see the Saints. The only loss that I can almost believe guaranteed is the Chiefs, and that's going to be probably, if Brice can come back, that would be his first game available. I don't even think Brice is coming back that early. I think Brice is going to be sitting for another, I think Peyton's going to ride out this till playoffs, believe it or not. I think that's what he wants to do to ensure Drew is healthy for the playoff run. Because the way this defense is playing, I can honestly believe that there is not a team on the remainder of this schedule that can touch them. With the way this defense is playing, they are playing unbelievable football. I don't care. We didn't play a quarterback last week. That game shouldn't have been played. It was a punishment by the league. And that was it. They got punished by the league, and the league wanted to make an example out of them to make them get embarrassed on national TV. Regardless, the week prior, we played lights out. When we played Tampa Bay, lights out. This team is gelling. Getting Quan Alexander is going to be the best acquisition this year by any team. Mark my words. Mark my words. Let's continue this after a break because I have more to say.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC Nation, we're back. Football topics. Let's get it right into it. I got to say it and say it right here on the pod. Tom is washed. Believe it or not, folks, Tom Brady can't throw deep. Believe it or not, folks, for weeks I had to sit here, look at you, look around you. We created this. We started it. I had to throw in the Drake meme because people across the nation were just like, Drew is washed. Drew Brees. Noodle arm Brees. I agreed. Drew looked washed. And yet still here we are. Tampa Tom is 0 of 20 in the last 20 attempts on deep throws when he has Mike Evans, who is a glorified tight end, who only gets goal line looks. Antonio Brown, for all intents and purposes, has looked pretty solid in that offense. And, Chris Godwin. And let's just go ahead and say it. Gronk looks pretty good for an old guy with injury history at the tight end. Ronald Jones, who I actually like, and they don't utilize properly. Brady is washed. I'm saying it here. Brady is washed. You can't sit here and tell me that we watched Derek Carr and the Las Vegas Raiders walk up and down the field and almost go 2-0 against the reigning Super Bowl champions. And Tampa Bay got embarrassed for that first half, and they still lost. That's the issue. Tom is washed. He can't throw the ball deep because his accuracy is out of the question. I don't care. I don't want to hear about, no sync with the receivers. He's still trying to get in sync. I don't care. No one else in the National Football League is allowed to have this excuse this late in the season. After week 4, put on your shoulder pads, put on your helmet, strap it up, and go play the sport that you get paid millions of dollars to play. Tom Brady is the only guy, the only one who still somehow gets the chirpings, the people on the Twitters, the blue checks talking about, yeah, man, they just dance around the subject because everybody's scared. Everybody doesn't want to talk about it. Tom is washed. Tampa Bay stinks. And you know what? I got to say it. I don't think Bruce Arians is that good. There you go. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So, my first thing. So, the only thing I have first comment on is the receivers. Because actually, never mind. That's actually a bad point. So, are you... So are you saying would you rather have last year's Jameis Winston or this year's Tom Brady?
The stats are similar. That's all I have to say. That is all I have to say. The interception stats, the touchdown stats actually aren't all that similar these days because Tom Brady hasn't really thrown that many touchdown passes comparative to Jameis Winston's when he was going 30 for 30. Now, of course, he threw 30 interceptions, so he was throwing the ball and turning the ball over much more. However, let's just let the record reflect. That team last year was a few, maybe 6 turnovers away from playoffs. This team is still in the same predicament that they were last year with all the problems that carried over. The Bruce Arians system has been known for turnover-heavy things because they throw the ball vertically down the field so often. And let's just face it, Tom is not throwing the ball accurately vertically. He's 0 of 20 in his last 20 attempts on long-distance throws. When he has someone like Antonio Brown who looks like he still could be a top 10 wide receiver, you have Chris Godwin coming off his best and one of the best seasons we've seen from a wide receiver who just jumped up so much in talent. You have Mike Evans. I don't like Mike Evans. I'm pretty sure you don't like Mike Evans. But at the end of the day, he's a 6'6" wide receiver. Just throw him the ball. Just put it up. And you know what? He still does that sometimes, draws penalties, whatever, doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But at the end of the day, you have weapons. The ball there should be people open, which there are, mind you. But on pivotal downs, on downs that matter against teams that are good, that can put pressure on that tree trunk Tom Brady, he goes down. He doesn't know what to do. He throws the ball away because that's what he did in New England. He doesn't like to get sacked. He doesn't like to get hit. He throws the ball away. He doesn't like to throw turnovers. He throws the ball away or he takes the sack anyway. New Orleans went there and tackled that man to death. You can see it now. When he played against Aaron Donald wasn't playing with Tom. Aaron Donald didn't care about Tom Brady. You saw Chris Jones. Chris Jones and Tom Brady were jaw-jacking last week. If you have interior pressure, I said this last time, the Achilles heel of the New Orleans Saints for the past couple years, especially going up against the Minnesota Vikings, especially last year in particular, interior defensive pressure was the Achilles heel of that team. Because if you could pressure up front in Drew Brees' face to where he can't escape and roll out or he can't step up in the pocket because you're bringing pressure through the middle of the offensive line, that's how you beat Drew Brees and the Saints. It is the same thing right now for Tampa Bay that we're watching. You bring pressure through the nose, through the zero, through the ones and twos of the offensive line, it's wraps. It's done. Tom he can't run out. He can't escape out the pocket. You see with Matt Ryan, you can't roll out. This is why everybody's getting mobile quarterbacks, because at the end of the day, you need somebody who can make somebody miss and extend the play, because offensive lines it's hard to find a good offensive line that can pass block for someone like Tom Brady. It's not happening anymore. And unfortunately, that means Tom can't sit there and go 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 and throw something in the flat route when he can't see something, because the pressure is coming. And this is also a team that people have been circling every time they see them play. They're like, oh, let me circle this because we want to take it to Tom. You know how many people have been waiting to hit Tom? You know how many people have been salivating to go sack Tom Brady? It's cooked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying, man. Definitely. For me, when I watch Tom play, I look at him. I think, I don't really look at this excuse. A lot of people like to make this excuse. Oh, it's the offense. He needs to go short all the time, yada, yada, yada. And, he didn't have weapons in New England, and now he has weapons, and now he's asked to just make the ball go down the field a little bit more. Now he's struggling. And so for me, I feel like Tom, I don't think that relationship with him and Bruce Arians works first. I don't think, because I think one thing I think you've heard and I think is really true is that one thing, if Tom does miss something about New England, is the way New England is constructed. Because, they have a very methodical, very constructed system where, Bruce Arians has always kind of ran more of a loose type of, martinis on the beach type of thing, kind of whatever. And I think Tom needed that construction to help him. Where now Bruce, when he makes those comments, about Brady after the game, he's basically putting Brady on the island and saying, you got to do better. It ain't me. It ain't my offense. You just missing stuff. And
he's right. 0-20. I will continue to say this as things get worse and worse for Tom's deep throws. 0-20, because I will be a cold day down under if I'm just going to let everybody talk trash about Brice and the no deep ball, and we watch Tom Brady do the same thing and hear crickets. No longer will crickets be sold. No longer. You should feel the same way. At least Matt Ryan still has a deep ball. People have been calling Matt Ryan washed for 2 years, and you see Tom Brady walk up in here and do this. This is outlandish, outrageous.
Yeah, Tom got a lot to he has a lot to work on right now. It's weird with them because I do feel like the way they try to call games is an issue for this one reason. Remember the Saints game, y'all blew them out. They only ran the ball 4 times. I do feel like Bruce is low-key trying to make it's weird, but I feel like he's trying to make a statement, because I feel like, when you have that type of a game plan where it doesn't look like you have a game plan, it feels like it's almost like he's just like, well, Tom, you're supposed to be the GOAT. I gave you receivers. I'm going to make you throw it 40 times, light it up, or else it's on you. Where, you like you said, you like Ronald George, you like Leonard Fournette. I mean, personally, yeah, Tampa Bay should probably be more of a run-first team to me and then pass it. But clearly that's not Bruce Arians' system. I'm just trying to start chucking it deep, and then we better make plays with the receivers we have. That just goes back to what I was saying about the construction Tom is used to. I think Tom is not I think his entire time in New England, he's always been on script. This is the first time in his career where he has to be off script, and he's struggling because he's not used to it. And he's older. I don't feel like people said his arm strength has diminished. I don't think it's diminished. He's overthrowing guys. But I think his accuracy may have diminished potentially, especially, again, on long balls. because he's supposed to be this Mr. Fundamentals, best arm fundamentals, always worked on it with his QB coach, and everything. And now he can barely, catch, anybody can really go deep and make plays. And so to me, Tom just has to really just they're 7-5, so it's not like they're in the worst situation in the world. And like I said, the NFC is very wide open this year. But if he does not start to play better, could this be Tom's last year? Could he sit here and say, you know what, I don't want to play in Tampa Bay anymore? Could he demand enough? Could he want out? I mean, I don't know, man, because I don't know about that relationship with him and BA. I don't know what if Tom ends this year on a bad note, will that make Tom say, you know what, I really might have to just go ahead and call it quits because this isn't working? Or is he going to sit here and say, you know what, maybe I need to go to a system similar to what I went to? And, just a hot take real quick, potentially, if Brady wanted out, just keep an eye out for the Giants and Joe Judge, since that's the closest thing to New England he can probably get.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Just to paint out the picture real quick, here's what is happening. The Giants are at the top of the NFC East, so if all things go well for them, which is kind of tough, their schedule is not favorable. If they win the NFC East, they get a playoff spot. Everybody else in the NFC East is relegated to being a top draft pick, like they should be. The NFC West is where things are kind of most competitive from a seeding standpoint, but Seahawks, before this game is played, is 7-3. The Rams are 7-4. The Cardinals are 6-5. So that alone tells you Buccaneers can't mess around anymore. They cannot afford to lose another game this season, because I don't believe at this point 11 wins is getting you in. I don't know if 11 wins get you in, because it seems like a lot of teams are going to start actually tallying off some dubs, because the Saints locked up the division. It's done. It's finished. This is over for Tampa Bay. I'm calling it here. Last hot take of the night. Tampa Bay will not make it to the playoffs, and they will have 2 more losses on their season. Actually, and one of them will be to the Falcons. We'll go all the way hot. We'll go all the way.
I appreciate that confidence in us. I really do. I mean, could have, no, more than likely, it'll probably be 3 teams from the NFC West. Shoot, even the 49ers still have a chance. Could we have 4 teams from one division?
This is what I'm saying. Listen, they could catch something crazy from the Vikings. I'm not sitting here saying, but we've seen the Vikings play to other people's teams, and we've seen some things, right? We've seen capabilities. I'm not going to sit here and speak on the Lions, but the Falcons, you play them twice. You know division rivalries, how they can go. That's all I got to say. But let's take our final break, and we'll go into some more football conversation.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, we're back. GSMC Football Podcast. Let's go ahead and move into some topics of conversation when it refers to standings. We kind of just hinted at it before. The NFC standings are kind of up in the air in the lower, in the wild cards. I don't think they're going to do 8-team playoffs, because if they did, I feel like their decision to punish, if they wanted to do an 8-team playoff, the Ravens would not be playing this week. That game would be canceled or forfeited, should I say. I think that the Denver game would have been postponed. They would have figured something out to not make that such a horrible event. The NFL is not doing that. So what they're going to do is keep it to 7 teams like they did, and that's what they're going to do. But yeah, so the NFC is all over the place except for the top seeds and the NFC East, which we don't even want to talk about really. So let's move on to the AFC, where we have Buffalo at a 8-3 record. Dolphins they got a win after taking a bad loss that honestly put them behind. They should be on top of the division, in my opinion. No Tua because of a thumb thing that happened last week. So Chiefs are 10-1, which arguably you can argue that it's a stronger 10-1 than you would think. Like, it's this the thought process of the Chiefs being 10-1 right now is mind-boggling. Even the Steelers being 10-0 for some reason still doesn't feel as good as the Chiefs being 10-1, considering that their defense isn't that great. They just look, their points for and points against. Let's look at this. This is fun to talk about. Their points for, they have 348 points on the season. Points against, 238. The Steelers have 298 points for and 174 points against. I think if the Steelers and the Chiefs meet, it is going to be something crazy. So, yeah. The Titans are 8-3, Colts 7-4. They had an interdivisional matchup that ended up going all the way to the Titans. And then, of course, we got to talk about Cleveland. Cleveland is 8-3, and lo and behold, the Ravens, after falling a couple games, they're on a 2-game slide now. They're fighting for playoff spots now. Thankfully, their game is still going to be going on for them, but it is not going to be a pretty scene here. So, Brice, how are you feeling about how things are shaking up in the National Football League? Who are some teams that you're looking at that are going to probably not be as competitive? As you know, a lot of teams' schedules are kind of on the weaker side as far as strength is concerned. But what are some who teams are you paying attention to most as the season is kind of winding down to its finale?
Well, first I want to just drop some news real quick. Some people were aware Daniel Jones was injured in the game Sunday, and it looks like he will miss a few games. So now it definitely seems like it is Washington's division to lose at this point, because now the Giants are down there starting QB, and I don't see the Cowboys rebounding. I think the Eagles are finished because their schedule is also too tough. And so I think it's Riverboat Ron's time to win it. And I also like to make a point that it feels like every time Washington wins the division, it's always in a very weird year for the NFC. It's never just the Washington football team is 11-5 or 12-4 and just is better. It's always like 9-7, 8-8, just a weird year. But they're always, and they're never talked about till the end. We all focus on the Cowboys and the Eagles, and then boom, Washington. They're the ones that come out. So that's the first thing. But overall with the teams, everything to me looks like it's shaping up the way it should. I think one reason, again, why I think, Kansas City, to me, head and shoulders, best team in the league right now. I think everybody is pretty much, that's the team. Right now, the most dream matchup you could potentially ask for outside of another Brady-Mahomes matchup in the Super Bowl is probably Saints and Chiefs, just because I don't believe – have y'all played the Chiefs since Patrick Mahomes has been there?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so y'all haven't. So obviously that would be a first time. Breeze, Breeze last game as a Saint against, the future of the league. A lot of headlines there. Pittsburgh, most intriguing team to me because defensively, I think they can play well enough against a team like Kansas City to keep Pittsburgh in the game. It's just going to be about Big Ben and that offense and what they can do. With that defense, Pittsburgh's always going to have a chance. The AFC, the Raiders, like you said, got destroyed by my Falcons. And it's really disappointing how they could almost, like you say, go 2-0 against the Chiefs, but then get destroyed. Now they're 6, I believe they're 6-5, and now they have a big matchup against the Miami Dolphins in about 3 weeks, I believe. That could determine basically who gets into the playoffs right there, depending on what happens with the Raiders moving forward. So that's going to be big to see what happens with them. Because like I said, they're the only team this year who really, if you look at it, said they could beat the Chiefs because they've done it and they've almost did it a second time. Miami is also a team to keep an eye on. Like I said, come off that bad loss. Sometimes you have games like that. Sometimes you do. And, they beat, again, obviously, the lowly Jets. And now they're going against a burless Bengals. And they'll probably be 8-4 going into the Kansas City game. So that's going to be a big game to look, not even just to see if Miami can win it, but just to see where they are, because that'll help us know how does Tua go against the top competition. He's went against, the Rams and the Rams basically. But we'll see how he does against, top teams like Kansas City. NFC, that last wild card spot. Now that the Cardinals are 6-5 has made things very interesting. Because all it takes is the Cardinals to slip up one more time, hit 6-6-6-6. Minnesota's 5-6. You got 2 teams at 4-7. If they win, they're 5-7. Now that race for that last spot in the NFC is becoming very, very interesting. Keeps people's dreams alive to potentially make the playoffs. And, for me, they play the Rams next, so it's very capable they could lose and be 6-6. So we'll have to see how that goes. But overall, I think, it'll be interesting how the season pans out. I definitely think we're going back to one of your points I think you made earlier in the show. They don't want to have an 8th playoff team. I think they're trying really hard not to, because I would just think, you're pushing the game back so far with the Ravens and Steelers. How, like when is it going to be kind of dangerous where it's like, hey, we play them Wednesday. Well, when are they playing the next week? Because they got games for the next week. Are we playing them on Monday, Tuesday? Like, is that enough time? Like, are we sure? I mean, yeah, some guys play Sunday, Thursday, but, it's just like, do you really want to do that? Messes the schedule up, messes everything up. But, if that has an extra playoff team now, it's like, oh, boy, now we're just opening up a new can of worms. But, overall, the landscape, teams are still in it. Teams have a chance. We'll have to see. To me, these last few weeks are going to tell us who gets hot. Because usually these are the weeks where a team that's kind of there can get hot. So another team that could get hot, watch out for Tennessee, destroyed the Colts yesterday, played like the Tennessee Titans we saw last year played. Big plays, Derrick Henry, team just to watch out for still. Now they have the division lead. And just overall, I feel like this is probably a big toss-up year, especially in the NFC. We believe Chiefs, but I think that just adds more of a shock factor if the Chiefs get to the playoffs and get eliminated by a team, because there's a lot of good teams that if they just play their best game and they do what they know how to do, I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen. So a lot of teams right now are still, playing some good football. And like I said, we'll see who really establishes themselves down the stretch.
Right. And,
I know I kind of jumped around a bit there.
No, you're good. So I think to jump on one thing I'm interested in watching, there's 2 matchups for the Titans this year for the remainder of the season that are going to be pivotal for everything going on in the going in NFC and AFC. They play the Browns this coming Sunday. That has a lot of playoff implications. I know the Ravens are like, please, please, somebody. Or they're probably rooting for the Titans because the Titans are going to probably run away, with the division, and they need the Browns to be knocked down a peg because who would have thought the Browns would be a 3-loss team so far? But real quick, is how would you feel about the Browns' newly hired head coach being in the Coach of the Year conversation?
I think, listen, as much as we feel like in their losses they haven't looked good, they're 8-3. They're 8-3 with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. We cannot take away from what he has done with this team. Because some people thought after they lost that one, I forgot who they lost to for their last loss, people thought the Browns were going to collapse.
I think it was the Steelers.
Offense. Yeah. No Odell. Offense looks terrible. Oh, they're going to collapse. And now look at them, still winning games. May not be the prettiest. They may not be blowing out teams. They may not be sitting here lighting it up, but they're winning. And at the end of the day, the Browns have never had a winning culture. They've never known how to win, and they're winning games. Because this is a building block they can build off on. And listen, I'm sure they're going to look into Baker this offseason and say, is there a better guy we can get than Baker in here to take that next step? You know, but they're 8-3. Unless they just completely falter down the stretch, they probably should make the playoffs. And to me, that's a very successful season for him. And I think with everything that's happened with the history of Cleveland, I think that will also add to his case of being Coach of the Year, turning around a team who hasn't had a winning season since 2007 with Derek Anderson, and 13 years later has their first winning season and makes the playoffs under new head coach Kevin Stefanski with a subpar quarterback play, best receiver out. I think that definitely should give him the consideration.
Yeah, just thinking about it though, it's like you can't go over Mike Tomlin, you can't go over Andy Reid. Honestly, you can't go over Sean Payton. You know, this is 2 years now where his starting quarterback, legend quarterback, is hurt, and he's still winning games. So that has to count for him. But no, Stefanski, good job on you. But they do play the Packers right after Christmas, December 27th. That is a night game. I assume that's a Sunday game, or I could be wrong. It might be it's a Sunday night game. Titans Packers. That's a big time matchup, and all the stuff about how physical the Packers have been. Can't wait to see how they plan to stop Derrick Henry, because I don't think he's stoppable at this point. I think it's over, folks. Derrick Henry is he's reached best back in the league time. You know when they say Derrick Henry just gets stronger as the year goes on? We're hitting the stride now because, geez, look at his rushing numbers are insanity. 4-2 at home, 4-1 away. They're just a strong team. Now, their defense has played better. It's played better. But, yeah, man, I think they are a strong contender. But without a doubt, man, that's going to be our podcast for this week. Unless, Brice, you have any last words, any last statements to say, anything hot to come off the plate?
I mean, just everybody have a good week, and go Falcons. Beat the Saints.
Oh, Lord. I forgot rivalry week once again. All right. Go Saints. Boom. I don't have to say too much. Go Taysom. Yeah, man, we'll be back next Tuesday as we'll discuss what happens in this week coming forth. Keep rocking with us, GSMC. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the pod. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at GSMC Football Podcast. I'll see you all next week. And so will Brice.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.